Hi, my name's Dee, your professor of woo-woo, and welcome to Sunchild Tarot, and welcome to a special guest, Erliana of Starsound Astrology. How are you doing, Erliana?
Oh, great. Thank you. It's great to be here. I love that. What was that? Professor of woo-woo? Is that
Professor of woo-woo, yes.
It's so cute.
It's a big thing for me, all things that a lot of people consider strange, for me, is normal and has been since I've been a small child. And so I think by having that moment of just humor is like, look, this is normal. This really is, it's as normal as eggs and bacon, you know.
Oh, yeah. I'm with you, brother. I'm with you. I'm preaching to the choir.
So
Yeah,
the
no,
reason I reached out to you is I saw you on Cat Rose Astrology's channel doing, it was the Taurus, the Scorpio lunar eclipse, wasn't it, you was doing?
Oh, right.
There's Cat Rose has been on this channel before. You'll be able to, if you go to the videos tab, she gave a talk, it'll be under interview, she gave a talk about the diamonds. But there was a comment that you made during that video that just made me go, oh, I really need to talk to you. And you was talking about the connection between sound healing and astrology. Now, long-term viewers of this channel know I've got myself into the astrology since the channel has started in a far bigger way than what I was before. I've never actually revealed that I've also dabbled my toes into sound healing, and being an ex-astronomer and, you know, following my physics, I love wave mechanics, I love maths. This is one of the things that drew me to astrology, actually, is, oh, there's maths involved. I love this. So I would love you to expand on that concept, the link between sound healing and astrology. The floor is yours.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
No pressure.
Well, no, right. Well, I have to say that, you know, my background is I came to astrology. Well, first it was the corporate world. How I found it, or how it found me, was very interesting. It was this man who, if I can just preface this by saying, you know, this interesting journey. I was living in New York and working in New York City, and I had taken a year off from my corporate career, and I was temping on Wall Street. Yeah. And one of the securities firms I was working at there was, you know, I was in an office just being a temp, right? I'd work 9 to 5 and go home, and I was on a spiritual path. My spiritual path had just opened up. So I really wanted to focus on growing on the inside and just doing the minimum on the outside. Yeah. Just work and go home and not be wedded to the job the way I was in my PR career. So I remember meeting this guy, and we became friends. He's one of the analysts, and we chatted and we're friendly, and, you know, and I have to say, you know, I thought he was cute, you know, and so we, you know, kind of had an attraction for each other. So I invited him to my house, and so out in the suburbs. So he came out and we visited, and we're chatting, and, you know, he doesn't know anything about me, but he had studied astrology. And he said, you know, when I told him he asked me how old I was, and when I told him, he said, oh, you were just through you just been through your Saturn return. And I never knew anything about astrology, only the horoscope as a kid, you know, in the newspaper. And so I didn't understand, you know, so what, you know, I'm like, what is he talking about? This is weird. Like, what's this Wall Street guy talking about astrology? What does this have to do with my age? You know, I had no concept. And then, but he proceeded to delineate everything, like the nature of everything that he said, you've just gone through a really hard time in your life. And I'm like, oh gosh, yeah. And he proceeds to explain, oh, like this kind of change and this kind of thing. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Like how he could know that just from my age. So I just thought that was really interesting. And so it planted a seed. It never sprouted until years later, but I do have to say that, you know, then after that, you know, years pass, I'm on my spiritual path, and I get into sound healing and energy medicine, and had really amazing master teachers, you know, and it was a lot of it was soul remembrance, sound, and just the way I'm, you know, like past lives where I had done this. So it just naturally came to me, given the opportunity. So, so astrology, like I said, was on the back burner, always in the, in the background, but not like formally studying it or anything. But sound healing, I was all in, and not from a scientific perspective. Like you're way more smarter than I am with science, but
don't believe it.
no, anybody is for me. I went to Catholic school. I had to say Hail Marys to like pass science class and math, but the only one I really loved was the only math that was my favorite was geometry. Wow, what a surprise. Little did I know years later. But anyway, I remember sound healing. Yeah, I really loved that. And so then, and I did that for years. I had a crystal bowl, and I had more than one. And these were a quartz crystal, and they were all attuned to different ranges of, G sharp, throat chakra, each one relating to chakras. And anyway, I did all this really cool work. I did sound healing meditations and all day workshops, and intensives, healing intensives, and evenings, and private sessions with lots of clients. And it was like really I was, showing others how to do it, teaching and facilitating for years. I did that for years. And then one day, it was like 2009 or so, by 2009, I could feel my soul was saying, you know what, I'm done with this. It was no longer, it was my whole world. I thought I would do it for the rest of my life, but something called to me, and I'm like, all right, this is finished, and I don't know what the next thing is.
Yeah.
And so long story short, it turns out I went through this kind of bardo for, a good several years. And so it was, I remember it was out of the Pisces, Virgo, and Leo, Aquarius eclipses that this revealed itself, astrology, and how I was meant to do this. And so it was the next thing, but I had to wait for it to land. I knew I couldn't go out and find it. I had to just sit, which is hard for a New Yorker to just sit and do nothing, and then like let it land. But it did. And when it did, it was I was just loving astrology, and always in the background, self-taught, just go on the internet. And by that time, more and more was on the internet. And I was just fascinated with it, but I always just kept it to myself. And then one day, I was at a party, and a friend of mine, I was just happened to be bubbling over with the latest, whatever current transit that was going on. I was like, la, 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 la. And then she just turned around and she said to me, why don't you give readings for people? And I was like, ooh, like, I never thought of that. I never thought of 20 years and never thought of that. And of course, the first thing that kicked in was, oh, I don't know if I know enough. And it was that kid. Well, luckily, a dear friend of mine who was an astrologer for many years, he taught me a lot on, like as an apprentice. And he finally, he said to me, I remember asking him, calling him up, and I said, do you think that I could do this, And he immediately said, oh, absolutely. And he was a very trained, I think he was actually trained in London, or he had some kind of background with somebody, I just remember it being from London. But anyway, I was esoteric astrology, and I'm like, wow, really? I'm like, okay, well, if you say so, because I trusted him implicitly. So that's how I got started. But then the next step was, okay, I know I need to have a name for my practice, but I don't know what that is. And so I'm just going to ask spirit to help me. So I put out the call, help me find the name, whether, give me a message or a dream or a sign or some kind of sign that shows me, because I know I'm only supposed to work with certain people. And so after asking a few times, maybe it was about a month or 6 weeks or 2 months later, I had this dream. And in the dream, I was standing in like the void, and it was like it was like I was in space, but it wasn't really, but I was also feel like I was in a room. So it's kind of hard to describe, but it was completely black. And in blazing white flame letters, it said, I looked up and it said, it was like crystal white flame letters, and it said www.starsoundastrology.com. I was like, oh, and I turned and I was like, there was like a friend of mine was in the next quote room, and I just went, hey, I got the name of a website. And then with that, boom, I woke up like back in this dimension. And all I know, Dee, is that it was really interesting. Like I can't to this day explain, you know, like with words, what happened, but I know that something occurred, and it was in addition to just receiving that in the website, it was like this understanding that I don't know, something was done to me, and I can't even articulate, but there was some, and this is as best as I can put it in English, there was some kind of connection with sound. Like what was conveyed to me was like, well, okay, you've been a crystal bowl sound healer for decades, and you know that sound, everything is made of sound, you know, even like a shoe, you know, has a vibration of sound, right? All matter. And just like things have sound and crystal emits sound, so do planets. And so planets emit sound frequencies. And then when you're reading a chart, what you're really reading are the sound frequencies of the planets. And it's like weird, like I'm like, well, that's about as best as I could put it into English. And then the other feeling I got was, this is a very deep rabbit hole. And as you
Yes.
go further, yeah, it's gonna, you know, just give yourself time. Like you're gonna see, it's when you're ready, you know, things are gonna open up. So it was like, oh my goodness. So what I do is when I do readings, then I went into meditation to really, you know, really feel that out. By the way, I jumped out of bed and I ran to what it's called, Who Is, it's like the registry of domain names. And I'm like, Starsound Astrology. And they're like, yes, it's available. I'm like, like as if I had to doubt, right? But I'm like, jing, grab that thing right now. But what I wanted to say was, you know, I went into meditation to say, okay, you know, what about this? You know, like I want to go deeper into this rabbit hole. And what I was feeling was, you know, to give people an experience of their chart, like listening to sound. So not just take it off the paper, as much as that's very important, and give them an experience of the stars. So I'm like, okay, and the only way I knew how to do that is I had part of my sound healing was speaking in the language of light, which came to me about 25 years ago living in Sedona. I had moved out to Sedona from New York City. And this is like a non-linear star language. I don't know how else to explain it. And it's a bridge to telepathy. And the Keys of Enoch talks about the language of light very much and such. And so what I got was sing this chart to people. So when I sit with people in a private session, I have their chart and I consider it like a piece of sheet music. Yeah. Like it's, you know, unique just to them. And so I just said, okay, you know, and I really feel that when I sing that chart, it might only take a couple of minutes, you know, but it's like a homeopathic, and it cuts across time and space, and it delivers non-linearly their entire journey in this lifetime. And soul, if anyone's, you know, maybe not familiar with the term language of light, it's like the soul understands it, the left brain doesn't. It's scrambled so that the left brain is away, the egoic mind and the egoic filter. So it's just this pure transmission from one soul to another, you know. So it's like I'm reading the frequencies and I'm just singing. You don't think about it, it's just what comes. It's completely intuitive. And so I often get visions when I do that. I'll see something about a person or the nature of them, and it's what's in the chart. It's just visually represented. So I go in that way, and then I'm like, okay, well, now we have to satisfy the ego, so we'll spend the rest of our hour or 90-minute session, whatever, talking in English. I make a little joke about it, but that's how it occurs. It's like it's everybody's astrology chart is like a piece of sheet music. So
I remember on an Astrology Hub podcast, Gemini Brett saying something about some astrologer that was putting charts to music. And I'm sure I've heard somebody else talk about it as well, maybe T. Susan Chang, that there is somebody out there, I cannot remember who they are, but they actually look at the chart and translate it into a melody and into a musical piece, which I think is absolutely beautiful. Now, your comments sent me off in exactly a different direction to where you went, with that whole point of the charts being tones, because my mind went immediately to aspects. And so it's when you're dealing with an aspect, you're dealing with two planets. And so that point of when they're in harmony, or the waveforms could be considered in phase, is at the conjunction. When they are pulling apart at the opposition, it's almost like there is a discordant, if not a destructive, interference occurring. I suppose the squares are more those discordant and minor chord type relationships, and my mind went in that. So it wouldn't be a music of any one planet, it would always be the music or a note from two planets' relationship with each other. And then my maths started to fail me because I didn't have any numbers to put into that. But that was there were the images that started immediately springing into mind from what you were saying. There's a couple of things I want to ask you about here. So firstly, that moment when someone turns around to you and says, why don't you do it for money? Isn't that always I don't want to say a slap in the face, because it's not aggressive, it's not but it also is a wet fish being whacked into your face, when there's one bit of you going, I can't, can I? And another bit of you going, you stupid, why did you never think of this before?
Oh yeah, I didn't judge it, but I was just going, wow, that's interesting. And it kind of made me chuckle, because it's like the thing that you're meant to do. It's like, it's always right in front of you. Yeah. It's like, wow, duh. I'm like, oh, okay. But I think that's what eclipses do. It's like one door shuts, another opens, and all of a sudden it's like, jing, new beginning. And I don't remember the exact day it was, a month and day. I know the month that it was in the year, but it would have been interesting to see that chart, in my life. But I do know it definitely was related to eclipses, because it was an eclipse on my Mercury. Yeah. So yeah, so I'm like, okay, then here it comes, and a new connection. So a new chapter begins, and yeah. So
I will have to. Oh no, of course. Although I can't remember what sign it was in. But I started, let's call it reading out or reading for money. I think it was in 1999, because I was working as an actor and dancer, darling. And
wow.
Did not have a clue what I was doing. But obviously it was an unpaid theatre company. So when I say working, I was working hard, but there's no money for it. So it was a way of like making sure I had some food. And that year, I haven't gone back and had a look what the 99 eclipses were, but it went over Britain. I do remember that, because I went down to, it was total down in Cornwall. So I remember going down to see it. So yeah, I should go and have a look at that. There's so the next, well, I'm going to leave that bit for a moment. Your white letters in the sky. We was discussing earlier, you were saying how Superman's a big thing of you, for you as well. Do you recall Jack Kirby's The New Gods? Because they were Superman supporting characters in a way, but from them, there was the concept of the source that created everything. And the source would manifest itself as a hand that would write burning letters.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't see a hand, but dang those letters.
If you Google new gods, the hand of the source later, I think it will be one of those moments we go, oh, you know, just that moment of, oh, wow. There's
yeah, and I just remember that the brilliance of them. And I have to say too, many years earlier, I got, this is not my birth name, Irliana Samsara. And what I got my spiritual name, or Urim, if you want to use the terminology in the Keys of Enoch, the Urim is the name of light, light circuitry. And that is, this is the name that you've had in every incarnation. It's kind of like your, what's that word in computers where you're like your hard drive, you know, it's like, and then you have all these programs on your hard drive, right? You've got different software loaded on your hard drive. So it's like my earth name was, you know, one of many programs, but the main program running all those programs, right? That's like your spiritual name. And I remember when I got it, in this meditation, the first thing I saw was my last name, just spelled out in big white block letters. It said Samsara. And I knew that it was pronounced Samsara, not Samsara. Interesting. It's just like you said about earlier when we talked about the angel that appeared to you. It's like you just knew it intuitively. I'm like, oh, it's Samsara. And then I worked at the first name, and little by little, I had a piece of paper and pencil, and it intuited out Irliana. So it was really kind of cool but the reason I'm bringing that up is because I realized later that it was like the same place where I found my spiritual name, which was clearly the Akashic record. So I have a feeling like this came from, what when you say source or the Akashic records, it was waiting for me, that's for sure. You know, so
just for the viewers, just spend a moment talking about the Keys of Enoch and what they are, because I haven't thought about them for years. So if I say it, I'm probably going to get it wrong.
Oh, yeah. I even have it right over here. Hold on a second. Excuse me. Let me grab this. Yeah, it's an incredible book. I mean, you want to talk about opening up yourself to higher dimensions. It's I think it's the Academy for Future Science. I don't know if you can see it, the shiny letters. It says Yahweh in front. And it's called The Book of Knowledge, The Keys of Enoch. There's the, and it's an amazing book. I mean, honestly, it's, you know, how I understand it is that it's not even, it was this rabbi who was taken out of his body and into higher dimensions of light, and he met Enoch and Metatron and, you know, all Melchizedek, and just some out of his, like, for 2 days, and then he came back, and this is like, I don't know, 800 pages, and it's all this incredibly, you know, to the left brain, it's super scientific, and it doesn't make sense. When I first started reading it, I couldn't understand it, but over time, as we evolve, our mind opens, and then you can actually read it. It starts to make sense. But at first it was like reading words backwards. It was like so difficult. But like I said, so it's a really incredible book of light and knowledge, and it opens pathways in the brain as you're reading it. And it doesn't, your left brain is still going to squawk, you know, it's like, it kind of doesn't even matter. You're getting these downloads reading it, and it's really and there's a lot of astrology in it too. I'm gonna say a lot, but there is definitely astrological references to bring it back to astrology. And it's all about, basically, you know, about us, you know, opening to this. We're at this precipice now in our evolution, and we're opening to these higher dimensions of light, and how that all occurs on a very scientific level. But like I said, I'm no good at science, but my soul understands it, so that's like good enough.
I haven't looked at it in 20 years, and you refreshing my memory of it, I think that's a sign for me to go and have another good read of it. Another thing, I know that you've gone through Achita Bhava's training, so you're fluent with Hellenistic astrology. Now, we've also had as a guest on this channel, Lara Van Zadem, who is really, her baby is esoteric astrology. So I was wondering, how much, with your astrology that you work with nowadays, how much having a mentor who was esoteric astrology based, you know what I'm trying to say, how much does that inform, and how does it work with the Hellenistic? Are you finding them that you can pick from one or the other as it feels right, or that there's a natural harmony there anyway?
Oh, thank you. Well, I feel I was drawn to Hellenistic because I felt I really liked Achuda's channel. I remember him as Adam Ellenboss years ago.
Too.
Yeah, and then when I started getting interested in him, that's when he actually changed his name. He took vows as a Bhakti monk. I think he's a monk. And anyway, so a Krishna Bhakta. So I really liked his humility and his passion for, you know, it being the foundation of a spiritual practice. That drew me greatly, and I could just see his example, his humility and all, and his dedication. And he happens to be very, very good at it, and very obviously very masterful, and articulating it and teaching it for so many years. So I knew that this is the person I wanted to study with, because I myself feel that it's totally an extension of my spiritual practice. Yoga has been my life for over 30 years. And to me, this is just an extension of that. It's another place where it plays out. So I'm not doing crystal bowl healing to, you know, in terms of that facilitation, although it was amazing. I could tell you some great miraculous stories of healing that people had from that. And now I feel like the Dharma right now is doing it with astrology. And so to answer your question, I felt that it was important for me to know the way the ancients did. And I'm so glad I took his courses. It took 2 years with him, because it really did give me a great foundation, and to see it and understand it as the ancients understood it. And you understand the sacred geometry and the interrelationships between all the planetary bodies, you know, and the geometric relationships. So and what an incredible design of the cosmos. You're really present to that, you know. It's just, and which you don't get in psychological modern astrology.
Yeah.
So I felt it was important for me to understand that, and in, you know, like being an astro mage, I'm very drawn by that, you know, like astro magic, and you know what that means, and I feel that that's somewhere that's like the next thing for me, is to, like, you know, maybe there's a marriage there that you know, I'm just kind of getting my feet wet with that. And I think but I knew I needed to learn the ancient astrology in order to, it's like the foundation, your ABCs, you got to know that stuff.
How did that feel fitting upon that foundation of the esoteric astrology?
Well, honestly, I've not been drawn, oddly enough, or not. I kind of liked esoteric astrology, but I never really delved into it. It didn't call me the way it did to my friend. As you might think, oh, well, why not? You know, I mean, logically you should, you know, but it just didn't. But I really liked evolutionary astrology. I was very drawn to that. And I studied, you know, Jeffrey Wolf Green and Stephen Forrest, for sure. That called to me more. And then also the, you know, so between that was the bridge into you know, ancient. So the esoteric wasn't as, you know, it didn't feel as, I felt like there was something missing from that. And it turned out I was right. I confirmed later, years later, but there was something that it didn't quite, in the way in which it's practiced on planet Earth. I think that there's some things that are given to the masses, but there are other levels that are not known unless you're on different. Yeah. So that's probably what I was picking up on. So that's why I felt I needed to study.
So is there a little bit of a rebel within you there? Because that also sounds like, oh, well, if you're not going to tell me everything, I'll go and look at what this person's talking about then.
You're not going to tell me everything.
Yeah.
Because my higher self tells me everything, and it doesn't quite drive. It's like, wait a minute. You know, like growing up Catholic, it's like the only part of the Bible I ever loved, really was drawn to, like white on rice, was the book of the apocalyptic Revelation, the final chapter. Very encoded, very mystical, very symbolic, and I was just drawn to that. And the others, I wasn't drawn to it in any way the way I was that final chapter, man. I was a little kid and I'd be like reading this thing, and I was just so, guess because we were here to experience all these earth changes, and so going in that direction, it was the only thing that spoke to me. But I knew, like, just like I did I loved Catholic school, I loved learning and all the stories and all, but I always felt, and I couldn't put my finger on it, Dee, that like something was missing, and I don't know what it was, but something never felt 100% right, and I wanted it to, but it just couldn't. And then later, when I got on my spiritual path, it came to me like, oh, okay, and then I understood when I got this level of understanding and or enlightenment, or whatever you want to call it. I just remembered going, oh, okay, I'm done with Catholic Church. Like, it was over in that moment. And it's because there was that truth was not, that truth was that I understood now, and I could see how the official teachings of the church were like, no, it's not the 100% truth. There's something missing here. And like, oh, I got it. Now I see. And that was the end of that. I never went back.
So same question again, but this time, rather than esoteric, since you said you studied with, you studied evolutionary astrology and studied with Stephen Forrest, and I forget the other name that you mentioned. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, Jeffrey Wolf Green. I didn't take their courses, but I read their books. So right. Yeah, Jeffrey Wolf Green and Stephen Forrest. How did you
feel that the Hellenistic worked with that system? Was it just building upon, or is there that element of it feels right to go from this delineation from evolutionary, and here it feels right to go from this delineation from Hellenistic, or do they all nicely harmonize?
Yeah, I think they do all nicely harmonize. It's just that it wasn't a logical linear progression, because, as you know, they're two different camps, like the modern and ancient, or and ancient was the foundation, as that astrology, we almost lost it, and then thank God for Jung and Madame Blavatsky and Jung and Evangeline Adams, that brought it forth into the modern era. Because without them, where would we be, into the psychological vein? But yeah, I think it didn't, I liked it all. And then it was like a soul calling to me to like just study this ancient way. I really liked how Achuta was, talking about things. And I realized there were things that I wasn't going to get from just psychological modern astrology. It had to go to the foundations, and it felt right. Plus the eclipses were in my 3rd and 9th house, the information axis, so it was like of the Gem Sag eclipses. So it was definitely all, meant to be.
So that leads nicely on to pretty much nearly my final question. As we was discussing, this is the shiny new thing question. Because there is a you have a website, as you've said, in big high letters of fire in the sky, where you do offer courses for beginners. But what's your favorite technique that you love working with? What bit of your practice would you like to teach out to other astrologers who have gone past that basic level, that literally look at my shiny new thing, do you want to come play with it, so to speak?
So the question is like what I would say to other astrologers who already learned astrology?
Yeah, or what would you, the deeper, more technical technique, what is a favorite technique that you want to jump up and down and say, everybody, look at this, play with this, use this one,
right.
See how it goes. I love using this,
I'm using this. Oh yeah.
Look at my shiny thing.
My shiny thing. Well, in terms, well, right now, what I've just started teaching again, as by request, kind of like just the universe calling me forth. Kind of like when my friend turned to me and said, you should do readings, you know, and charge people. I was like, really? You know, I was like I didn't come looking for this. It found me. And just like with teaching, and a couple of 3 people within like a month or something said, you know, you should teach, or do you ever, you know, will you teach me? So I'm like, okay, I guess I'm supposed to be doing this, you know, in that rule of 3, you know, and so I started teaching, and it's just very, very basic, just because honestly, Dee, I see a gap, because a lot of people tell me that things are over their head and they feel intimidated, and Lord knows we've all gotten our minds blown, and we always have to manage ourselves, you know, don't get overblown and your head splits open with all the detail of astrology. And so I know how important it is to just take like address people who are might feel left out. Like I've got to, they want to jump on that train, but it's still a little intimidating. So I break it down even further. And I think there's a niche there for people to do that. And then even if you are, like you were saying, just asking me this, you know, what about a more, and if I understood you correctly, you know, the advanced level, I think that at any level that we teach at, we want to just keep it really simple. And what I like to do is use humor, you know, humor and analogies, making simple analogies, and the visual, creating a visual, and it helps people learn. I know it helps me. Maybe this is just all about me. I
have to say, with what you're saying, I want to ask, where's your Mercury?
Where's my Mercury? In Virgo.
Right. That explains so much.
Yeah. Mercury in Virgo. Yep. Ruling, yeah, in domicile for sure. So the detail person. But I love to share. I'm very passionate about learning and sharing. And when I was a kid, the nuns asked me to tutor some girl when I was in the 5th grade. They said, hey, this first grader, she needs help. Can you go tutor her? I'm like, oh, okay. I tutor her in reading. So I became a reading tutor, and they didn't pay me though. But yeah, I love that. I love showing people. And then people have said to me, you know, I really appreciate the way you break things down and make it understandable, like bite-sized chunks, you could say. Because Lord knows in astrology, you need the bite-sized chunks, and whether it's beginner or advanced, you know. Still going back over my Achuta videos, you know, like, oh my God, like it's huge. I look back, I'm like, I can't believe I went through that. Like, oh my goodness, there's a lot of information here. So yeah.
So dare I turn around and say triplicity lords at you?
Right, triplicity and triplicity rulers, right?
Yeah, no, I can't get them. Now, I'm
exaltation rulers.
I'm your opposite. I'm Mercury in Pisces. I love seeing the detail, but I love seeing as many possible details at all. If you can watch all my readings, I will happily do a reading with 6 decks, which I enjoy more and feel I can get more out of than just doing 1 deck of cards. So wow. Although theoretically, as a trainer, I agree with you entirely with keep it simple, there is a part of me that just screams, no, it does not have to be simple. We are here to be complicated. That's why we're here. You know.
Well, here's what you could do. Like keep it simple, but then offer lots of simple. So there's all kinds of variety of simple. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm there 100%. Why not?
You still haven't mentioned a favorite technique other than keeping it simple.
Oh, a favorite technique? You mean like a teaching technique?
Yeah, like triplicity lords, or like, I mean, I love 12 parts. I adore 12 parts.
Oh, what's my favorite nerdy thing? Totally.
Yeah, okay, there's a good thing. What's your favorite nerdy thing?
My favorite nerdy thing is eclipses.
Right.
I like a lot. I could speak about them like 12 months of the year. You know, people have these stores, like they sell Christmas items in July. It's like, I'll be the eclipse store. there's no eclipse going on. It's okay. I'll still talk about one just happened and then one that's coming. Here's what, which by the way is very important, because even if, one of my first teachers, bless her heart, she's not on the planet anymore, but she was so great, brilliant woman. And she told me that, she used to say that eclipses, I never heard anybody talk about eclipses this way or approach them this way, Dee, and let me know if you have, but she said, when she sees that an eclipse is going to be happening or activating, part of her chart months ahead, she'll go and do the work. She said, do the work now that the eclipse is calling you to do, because
Yes.
if you get proactive ahead of getting slammed, right? Then she said, the eclipse will, I'll never forget this, and I put it in my teachings, in my slides. She said, then the eclipse blessings will rain down upon you like a good karma piñata.
Oh, what an image.
Isn't that great?
Yeah,
So
that's a super. So it's a bit like treat each eclipse like it's a Saturn return. Have a look at what it's going to demand from you, and then prepare for that.
Yeah, because they are, it's the most important event in astrology. That's how I, see it. And it's a super new moon. I mean, those things resonate, and I don't agree with the orthodoxy that says, oh, they're only good for like a year or so, or an eclipse, 6 months or a couple of years. It's like, let me tell you, that Leo Aquarius, that great American eclipse at 29 Leo, that thing is still resonating. And here the nodes have long since left Leo Aquarius and then into, Cancer Cap and Gem Sag and now Taurus Scorpio. Like, for instance, that the Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, like, she got arrested. She just got sentenced yesterday, 20 years. I don't know if you heard, but she got arrested in early, like, first or second day of July, like 2 years ago. They finally arrested her. And I looked back. So here we're in the middle of we're still in Cancer Capricorn eclipse cycle, and well out of that Leo Aquarius. And sure enough, Mars hit that eclipse point. And when Mars hits that eclipse point, you see its trigger. You see things happen. And even though we had long since passed those nodes, different signs, it's still resonating. And that thing was radioactive, boom, 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 boom. And there it was. And so, yeah, it's pretty wild how powerful they can be. I read this book that it was a book by Celeste Teal on eclipses, and it's a great book. And I'm pretty sure it's still in print, but she said how she has seen eclipses resonate for years, like 5 or 6 years it could resonate, especially if it was like on your Pluto, I suppose, But I just wanted to share that if people think the party's over, it's like, oh no, look at that Mars. Now, in the case of the Leo Aquarius, Mars went retrograde, so it took 2 years for Mars to hit that eclipse point. But when it did was August 2019, Jijing, Jeffrey Epstein, dead in his right there, and all that. Yeah, so it really got.
You'll be reassured to know then that you are not the first person to say that on this channel, because me and David had this exact same conversation. We was looking at we was looking at the solar eclipse earlier this year, the Taurus one, which I loved because it had that Jupiter-Venus conjunction at the same time. And we was talking about Dorotheus, how he says that however long the eclipse lasts, you can easily, for an hour of a solar eclipse, you can have a year's worth of lasting power. And I think he said it was a month an hour for a lunar eclipse, but I didn't care. I was all took up with the solar eclipse. That's what I'm basing the course that I'm writing on that solar eclipse, which is I spent right. So you're saying you're moving into astro magic. How do you feel? Because remember, my background is more magic than astrology any day. How do you feel about performing magic using eclipse energies? Because most astrologers are like, oh, no, 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 don't do that. Don't do that. You know, I spent the entire day in ritual just because it was really good for my chart.
It was good for your what?
Good for my chart. That Jupiter Venus was right on my sun.
Got it. Yeah. And how did that turn out for you?
It's turning out very well, and it will keep turning out very well for a good few years yet.
There you go. So I guess that's good to know, because I know I respect and I listen, and like you have the open door and the closed door in your background. Yeah. Boy, that door looks like it opened more.
Yeah, it did. I pushed it open after we had that chat.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, it looked like it was a little closed. Now it's open. You know, I think that, oh, sorry, forgot what I was saying. Whoop, went out of my head.
Magic on the eclipses.
Magic, yeah. Magic. I respect, and I always listen to, I love to listen to everybody's opinion on something. I collect all that Mercury, I collect all the data, and then I have to go in and digest it, and I have to feel it against what's the truth in my heart. And so I remember like Austin Kopach and everybody and his partner, what his partner's name, you know, they're big, you know, mages out there on the internet. And they would say it over and over, you know, don't do magic. It's like, you know, these new age people that don't know what they're doing, and it can have disastrous effects. I'm like, well, I'll listen to that. I mean, that's good to know. But then I hear you and I'm like, oh, okay. I know for me, I feel
really good for my chart. Like I said, that was Jupiter Venus conjunction on my sun. So I think normally I might have stepped back a little, but there was part of me going, I'm not missing this. This is do or die, you know.
Yeah, like this is you, you know, yeah, like I think you're right. It depends on your chart, and it's not like a blanket statement. And I think for me, I know intuitively, I always feel with eclipses is to really go within and meditate and do the inner work. And, you know, just to really tune in and sit quietly. It feels good to do that. So that's what I go with.
So there's no point asking where can people find you, because we've had the giant letters of fire in the sky, www.starsoundastrology.com. We've talked about your course that you're offering for beginners in astrology as well. What else can people find if they come looking for you?
Oh, well, the course, I'm already into week 3 of, it's a 5-week mini course, and I already started it, but I'll definitely offer it in the future, so people can always, you know, ask about that. Yeah, and so, but yes, thank you so much. Where can people find me? YouTube, I have a Starsound Astrology on the YouTube channel, and I do every week. I have some awesome folks that I interview. It would be fun to have you on. I think it would be a lot of fun.
I can come talk about angels and demons.
What was that about? Angels?
Come and talk about angels and demons. I like looking at the Shem Hamepharash and the Goetia within the birth chart.
Going into the, okay, so yeah, so I'm on YouTube and LinkedIn. I have a LinkedIn page, and I have a mailing list, and I sometimes run all kinds of, you know, cool things or specials, and so people can always, you know, hop on that too. So that's yeah, in this moment, that's what it looks like. So am I forgetting something? Something's bugging me. What is it? Anything else that? Yeah, no, I don't think I'm ready to say it on the internet yet, but I'm working on a creative project that's pretty mind-blowing, and I can't say it yet because I'm not finished with it. So I'm kind of like the Russians, like they didn't launch the rocket. They didn't talk about the rocket until it was launched off the pad. So I just wanted to keep that to myself, but it involves astrology, and it's really, really cool. And I think everyone will.
Is this going to be your nerdy thing?
Yeah, it's a new level of nerdy thing, and it's a whole other area of my life. So yeah, I can't wait to share it with everybody. And so yeah.
Well, Eliana, thank you so much for coming on the channel. All of Eliana's link will be down in the description down below. As ever, please press the like button, especially if you've lasted this far. You know, well, we deserve it. We've kept you entertained this long. Like, share, subscribe, all that good YouTube stuff. Liana, once the next set of eclipses come up, would you like to come back and talk about them by any chance?
Oh, heck yeah. I love it. I'll talk about them tomorrow, you know, right?
Fantastic.
Yeah, my favorite thing, the eclipse girl.
Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you very much for watching, everybody, and we will see you later.